You solemnly swear to tell the truth and the whole truth and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do.
The Attorney General under oath about Russia, James Comey, and President Trump.
And the suggestion that I was aware of any collusion with the Russian government is an appalling and detestable lie.
It got fiery.
Mr. Comey said that there were matters that were problematic and he couldn't talk about them. What are they?
Why don't you tell me? They are none, Senator Wyden. There are none.
Jeff Sessions grilled on Capitol Hill. The U.S. Attorney General insisting any suggestion he colluded with the Russians is simply, quote, a lie.
Local 10 News D.C. Bureau Chief Ross Palumbo with the only South Florida reporter inside that hearing today. And Ross is joining us live on Capitol Hill. Ross.
Well, Laura and Calvin, Jeff Sessions proving again today that this is not his first rodeo. He spoke out strongly about the Comey firing, about the Russian ambassador, and about his conversations with the president. It was that last issue that caused the most controversy when Sessions refused to disclose what he has talked about with the president, Donald Trump.
I do.
From the swearing in, Attorney General Jeff Sessions came out swinging.
The suggestion that I participated in any collusion, that I was aware of any collusion with the Russian government to hurt this country, which I have served with honor for 35 years, or to undermine the integrity of our democratic process is an appalling and detestable lie.
Questions began about lies or alleged undisclosed meetings with the Russian ambassador.
I could say that I possibly had a meeting, but I still do not recall it.
But the Attorney General still insists that he does recall what did or did not happen.
Not one thing happened that was improper in any one of those meetings.
Then questioning turned to the firing of FBI Director James Comey, Sessions testifying that his recusal from the Russia investigation was irrelevant.
So the scope of my recusal, however, does not and cannot interfere with my ability to oversee the Department of Justice.
And when it comes to Comey's claims that Sessions knew he shouldn't have left Comey alone with the president during a White House dinner.
That you felt like perhaps you needed to stay because it involved the FBI director?
Well, I don't know how I would characterize that, Senator Rubio. I left. It didn't seem to me to be a major problem.
Senator Marco Rubio also asked about the tapes, whether Sessions knew anything about any recordings.
Do you know if the president records conversations in the Oval Office or anywhere in the White House?
I do not.
But beyond that, exactly what the president and he discussed about Comey, Sessions refused to say over and over
Mr.
again.
Chairman, I'm not able to comment on conversations with high officials within the White House.
Senator, what was the most important thing you learned during this hearing and testimony today?
His categorization of the February 14th meeting and his view that Director Comey had been involved at the federal government as FBI director longer than he had been the Attorney General, and knew what the rules were for interacting with the president.
Do you agree with him that his recusal really had nothing to do with the firing of James Comey, that he has to oversee the entire FBI, and those are two separate things?
Yeah, he has to oversee the entire FBI. There's more to the FBI than just the Russia investigation. And
well, I spoke with Senator Rubio at length. Clearly, Lauren Calvin, he believes that Sessions did well, that he did not have to answer those questions about what he's discussed with the president. The Democrats, of course, believing the opposite. They believe that Sessions is clearly obstructing this investigation. But listen, practically speaking, Jeff Sessions walked away unscathed, and that committee tonight is left once again looking toothless.
And Ross, we know the president is in Wisconsin today. He's speaking about jobs there. But what's next for this committee, and what's next with those investigations that are underway about the Russia interference of the election last year?
You know, actually, I spoke with Senator Rubio about that as well, and he says the investigation goes on. You know, they have several more people they need to speak with. They have several more documents they need to look at. That committee in particular still does not even have the Comey memos, even though James Comey himself has already testified in front of the committee. And of course, we're waiting to hear the Jared Kushner testimony. Remember, just a few days ago, I reported that Kushner has agreed to speak in front of the committee, and right now they're trying to work out all the details. As soon as that happens, of course, we'll get it right out to you.
That will be the third big day of testimony. We know you'll be there for us. Ross Palumbo live. Thank you. And for more political analysis on the Sessions testimony today, about 2.5 hours worth, stay with Local 10 and World News Tonight at 6:30.